Sūrat Al-Haaqqa is the 69th surah of the Quran with 52 ayat. There are several English names under which the surah is known. These include the inevitable hour, the indubitable, the inevitable truth, and the reality. These titles are derived from alternate translations of Al-Haqqah, the word that appears in the first 3 ayat of the surah. Al-Haqqah. What is Al-Haqqah? What will explain to you what Al-Haqqah is. Quote, though each of these titles may sound very different, each one alludes to the main theme of the surah, the Day of Judgment. Respected Islamist scholar Saeed Qutb makes a very interesting observation on the actual sound of Al-Haqqah. The very sound of the word imparts a feeling of decisiveness, seriousness, and a grounding stability. It sounds like a heavy object being lifted some considerable distance before being placed firmly into position. The strongly aspirated H sound appears to be lifted by the elongated A before it is firmly placed at the doubled Q and then finally stabilized with the final H sound. Historical context. Al-Haqqah is a Meccan surah, meaning it was revealed to the Prophet while he lived in Mecca as opposed to Medina. Meccan surahs divided into early, middle, and late periods. Theodore Known.These, in his widely accepted chronology of surahs, places Al-Haqqah as the 35th surah to be revealed. This places the surah in the early Meccan period, between approximately 612 and 617 AD. Early Meccan surahs are especially influenced by the historical context. At the time, pagan polytheism dominated Western Arabia and Islam was a very small budding religion. Muhammad had very little religious, political, or social power. The surahs of this period consequently deal less with specifics and concentrate on a few central themes. Scholar John Gilchrist points this out in one of his commentaries. The early Meccan surahs are all somewhat similar and concentrate on the issues which first impressed themselves upon Muhammad, namely the waywardness of his people, the judgment to come, and the destiny of all men to heaven or to hell. Thematic breakdown. Though the surah's holistic focus is the Day of Judgment, it is broken up into 3 main thematic units that coincide with Gilchrist's commentary. The first details the punishment given to disbelievers on earth. The second describes the Day of Judgment and subsequent afterlife. The third affirms the message of the Quran and the validity of the Prophet. God's punishment of the disbelievers. The surah begins with the terrible punishment given to communities of unbelievers, specifically the people of Ad and Thamud. The people of Thamud and Ad denied that the crashing blow would come. Thamud was destroyed by a deafening blast. Ad was destroyed by a furious wind that God let loose against them for 7 consecutive nights, 8 consecutive days, so that you could have seen its people lying dead like hollow palm trunks. Can you see any trace of them now? This direct punishment of non-believers at the hand of God creates a powerful image of him. This powerful image was especially important during the formative years of Islam, a time when pagan idolatry and polytheism dominated the religious landscape. By painting a powerful picture of God, the Quran supports its central monotheistic platform of one God, all-powerful, all-knowing. It is important to note the naturalistic imagery used in describing the destruction of Ad and Thamud. From a sociological perspective, this would have been very effective on the community of early believers. Consider the context in which these people lived: vast expanses of desert, high winds, little water, food, or shelter. Nature was simultaneously respected and feared by Arabs. Therefore, it was especially effective for the Quran to illuminate God's full control of nature. After hearing this story, the wind could be a constant reminder of God's power to a believer. 2. Day of Judgment and the Afterlife. The second section of the surah describes the Day of Judgment, when the trumpet is sounded a single time, when the earth and its mountains are raised high and then crushed with a single blow. On that day the great event will come to pass. The sky will be torn apart on that day, it will be so frail. These verses use similar, powerful naturalistic imagery to describe the Day of Judgment. No specific time for the Day of Judgment is given here or anywhere else in the Quran. This purposeful ambiguity creates a sense of immediacy for believers. The Day of Judgment could occur at any moment. This is a reminder to believers to follow God always, because you never know when the judgment will come. Another way the Quran reminds us about the Day of Judgment is simple repetition. The day is a central theme of many surahs, and is mentioned in many seemingly unrelated surahs. This puts the issue to the forefront of a reader's mind. Later on in Section 2, details of the afterlife are given. On the Day of Judgment, you'll be exposed and none of your secrets will remain hidden. Quote, "The people who are judged positively and have nothing to hide will have a pleasant life in a lofty garden, with clustered fruit within his reach." Quote, "But anyone who did not follow God is met with terrible punishment. God says, take him, put a collar on him, lead him to burn in the blazing fire, and in a chain 70 meters long. He would not believe in Almighty God. He never encouraged feeding the hungry, so today he has no real friend here, and the only food he has is the filth that only sinners eat." These verses create a stark contrast between the rewards of the believers and the punishments of the disbelievers. This is accomplished through tangible, physical language. The physical pleasures of the gardens of heaven are contrasted against the unbearable pains of hell. These powerful descriptions give readers of the Quran clear expectations of the afterlife and provide good incentive to follow God. 3. Affirmation of the Quran and its messenger. In the final section of the surah, God affirms the truth of the Quran and the validity of its messenger. This is a message sent down from the Lord of the worlds. This is the speech of an honored messenger, not the words of a poet. This affirmation is seen at the beginning or ends of many surahs in the Meccan period, and for good reason. When Muhammad was in Mecca, the new religion of Islam was a vast minority to the pagan polytheistic tradition. These affirmations therefore serve to reassure believers, and the Prophet, that they are following the right path. So to the disbelievers the Quran states, "We know that some of you consider it to be lies. This will be a source of bitter regret for the disbelievers, but it is in fact the certain truth.